Entry permit scheme for talents to be expanded to cover more mainland regions. Facial recognition to be used in more mainland Hong Kong entry points. And Donald Trump threatens to deploy troops in Nigeria. Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. The National Immigration Administration announced that starting on Wednesday, it will expand its entry permit scheme for Hong Kong and Macau to talent originating from the Yangtze Delta and the Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei areas. Individuals from these regions can apply for multiple entry talent visas within a maximum validity of 5 years. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Having been rolled out since 2023, the Hong Kong and Macau Talent Program previously just applied to cities in the Greater Bay Area, before it expanded to cover Beijing and Shanghai last year. This as the National Immigration Administration just announced an update to the measure that will further expand the scheme to cover talent from the Yangtze Delta and the Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei regions. All national free trade pilot zones have also been included in the latest measure. Talent from the innovation, culture, health, and legal sectors can begin applying for the visa starting on Wednesday, which will remain effective between 1 and 5 years. The multiple entry visa requires holders not to remain in either Hong Kong or Macau for 30 consecutive days. Applicants must also provide designated talent-related certifications. Several businesses in the innovation sector said great pools of talent exist in the two newly added mainland regions, and that the scheme helps the two SARs dig up even more talent across the country. Some of them cited the example of the technological success of the 6 Little Dragons of Hangzhou, adding that they benefited from acquiring talent from top-level institutions such as Tsinghua and Peking universities. Meanwhile, lawmaker Shanghai Long believes the measure helps to attract talent who aim to start long-term projects in the city and even settle in the SAR permanently. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Olympic fencing gold medalist Vivian Kong will run for the tourist seat under the functional constituency in the December Legislative Council election. This came after rumors said Kong would go for the geographical constituency, but failed to qualify due to her Canadian passport. Mimo Singhai reports.
Vivian Kong, the fencing Olympic champion, arrived in Fortress Hill to submit her application for the election on Monday afternoon. Alongside Kong were her supporters, including Siloland's chairman Darren Ng and Kerry Properties CEO Kwok Kong Hwa. Speaking of her reasons for joining the electoral race, Kong said she had always wanted to serve Hong Kong even after retiring as an athlete. While some people questioned her connection to the tourism sector, Kong said she hoped to introduce Hong Kong to the world through a new identity.
I think I'm just very grateful to have this opportunity and the support from the industry to really try and show the world how great of a city we are. And I think as an athlete, I've had the opportunity to represent Hong Kong, and I tried my best, and now I just want another way to do my best for Hong Kong because I really love the people, I really love the city, and it deserves so much more.
Kong revealed that she had renounced her Canadian passport, but she did not say when she had made the decision and denied that she had considered running for a geographical constituency. Kong's opponent for the seat is Ma Yat-chiu, a Kwun Tong district councillor who operates a travel agency. On the same afternoon, tourism legislator Yu Pak-leung said he will seek re-election, but Yu is going for the election committee constituency instead of the functional one. Yu's supporters consist of incumbent legislators and tourism representatives such as Choi Hua-mei-leung and Yu Si-wing. Meanwhile, more candidates have registered for the election committee constituency. This includes Michael Nai, the chairman of the Council of City University of Hong Kong, Lau Zhenggong, the managing director of Colliers Hong Kong, and Chan Zhou-guan, former chairman of the Junior Police Officers Association. Other new nominations for the functional constituencies are Francis Lam, former president of the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors. He will compete against Julia Lau, president of the Hong Kong Institute of Architects. Ray Zhern, the associate professor at CTU, will compete against legislator Deng Fei. Memos 9, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump said NVIDIA's advanced Blackwell chip for artificial intelligence would not be available to other people. This as questions have swirled since August about whether Trump would allow shipments of a version of the Blackwell to China. Meanwhile, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent voiced concerns about China's commitment on the rare earth issue. Tracy Furness has more.
With a friend of mine.
Late last week, China announced it would suspend for 1 year the restrictions it imposed in October on rare earth materials and technologies. At Monday's Ministry of Foreign Affairs news briefing, China said suppression is not a solution.
I believe
the results of the China-US Economic and Trade Negotiation Team in Kuala Lumpur showcases that negotiation and dialogue is the right way. Suppression can not help to solve the questions. The priority is to implement the important common understanding reached by the two heads of states to inject more certainty into the trade cooperation between the two states and world economy.
Speaking on CNN Sunday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent voiced concern that Beijing had not always followed through on its commitments, adding U.S. allies will join them in forming their own supply chain while de-risking from China.
This time, we have rallied the allies, and so it is going to be all the Western democracies, the Asian democracies, and India are also going to join us in this in trying to form our own supply chains. We don't want to decouple from China, but we need to de-risk. They've shown themselves to be an unreliable partner in many areas.
Meanwhile, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that his administration may not be inclined to grant broad overseas access to the prized AI NVIDIA chip.
The new Blackwell that just came out, it's 10 years ahead of every other chip. But there's nothing to meet with other than say, congratulations. But no, we don't give that chip to other people.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
U.S. President Donald Trump said that President Xi Jinping has given him assurance that Beijing would take no action on Taiwan while Trump is in office. Trump made the comments in an excerpt of an interview with CBS's 60 Minutes. Asked if he would order U.S. forces to defend Taiwan in case of an attack, Trump said, "You'll find out if it happens," and he understands. The answer to that. Liu Pengyu from the Chinese embassy in Washington said China will never allow any person or force to separate Taiwan from China in any way. He further stated that the Taiwan question is China's internal affair and it is the core of China's core interests. He added the way to resolve the Taiwan question is a matter for the Chinese people ourselves, and only the Chinese people can decide it. U.S. President Donald Trump said his country could deploy troops to Nigeria or carry out airstrikes to stop what he called the killing of large numbers of Christians in the West African country. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Donald Trump made the comments about Nigeria as he headed back to Washington after a weekend at his vacation home in Florida.
On Nigeria, just wanted to ask you, do you envisage U.S. boots on the ground?
Could be. I mean, a lot of things I envisage, a lot of things. They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria. And they have other countries very bad also. You know that part of the world very bad. They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers. We're not going to allow that to happen.
Trump's threat of military action came a day after his administration added Nigeria back to a countries of particular concern list of nations the U.S. says have violated religious freedoms. Other nations on the list include China, Myanmar, North Korea, Russia and Pakistan. Nigeria, a country of more than 200 million people and around 200 ethnic groups, is divided between the largely Muslim north and mostly Christian south. Islamist insurgents such as Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province have wrought havoc in the country for more than 15 years, killing thousands of people. Their attacks have been largely confined to the northeast of the country, which is majority Muslim. Analysts say while Christians have been killed, the vast majority of the victims have been Muslims. Responding to Trump, a Nigerian government spokesperson said the country would welcome U.S. help in fighting Islamist insurgents as long as its territorial integrity is respected. The spokesperson added Nigeria's national security policy does not discriminate against any tribe or religion, adding there is no Christian genocide. Dan Royal, TV News.
Still ahead, Washington to answer judges on whether to fund food aid. Hamas sends more bodies of hostages to Israel. And a study to identify those who are more likely to get early onset diabetes. Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration faces deadlines on Monday to tell two federal judges whether it will comply with court orders that it continue to fund SNAP, the nation's biggest food aid program. The U.S. Department of Agriculture planned to freeze payments to the program due to the federal government shutdown. The situation leaves millions uncertain about how they will feed themselves. Hundreds more than usual lined up as early as 4 a.m. in the morning on Saturday to collect fruit, vegetables, bread, milk, and more at a food pantry in New York City. Officials who run the pantry said it was more than 3 to 4 times the number we always see. They attributed the waiting line to the abrupt stop of SNAP. Last week, judges in Rhode Island and Massachusetts ruled separately that the administration must continue to pay for SNAP. The remains of 3 Israeli hostages returned by Hamas are soldiers who were killed in the October 2023 attack. Hamas say their remains were taken to southern Gaza 2 years ago. One was an American Israeli. President Trump spoke with his family, describing their relief and heartbreak. David Garrett reports.
A solemn silence among the assembled crowd lining the street. Only dead bodies returning now. A convoy containing the remains of 3 Israeli soldiers Israel say were killed on October 7th, 2023, taken by Hamas and dragged into Gaza. Found in the rubble of a Hamas tunnel by heavy earth-moving equipment allowed in by Israel from Egypt. These vehicles slowly going into the National Center of Forensic Medicine for identification and a reunion and funeral with loved ones. Success for Israel, but it is urging Hamas to work faster. 20 bodies returned since the settlement was agreed. At least 8 remain. All Israelis killed or held in captivity must be found and handed back under Donald Trump's brokered ceasefire.
We got Nutra, from New York and from the United States. And I spoke to his parents. And they're thrilled in one sense, but in another sense, obviously, it's not too great.
Israel's drones carry out strikes beyond Gaza. UAVs hit Hezbollah targets in Lebanon over the weekend. 5 were killed. Despite a ceasefire agreed last year, Israel has hit these militant strongholds almost daily. Hundreds of mourners and Hezbollah supporters attended the funeral. Prayers were read and flowers scattered as the coffins were carried to burial. Gazan children cheer as UNICEF trucks come in. This convoy is needed, but trucks appear too few and infrequent. Aid seekers say they are seeing about 300 lorries a day, an increase since the ceasefire was set in motion last month, but only about half of what should be getting through under the agreement. In these boxes, basic food and cooking oil. They are distributed to those waiting, although some said it is not nearly enough. David Garrett, TVB News.
British police have charged 32-year-old Anthony Williams from Peterborough with 10 counts of attempted murder after a knife attack on a London-bound train in Cambridgeshire on Saturday, which spread fear and panic among the passengers. Officials said that one heroic member of the railway staff remains in hospital in a life-threatening condition. This, as a witness to the mass stabbing, has described how she fled through carriages to escape the attack, saying she didn't know if she would be the next to be stabbed. Tracy Furness reports.
Student Amira Astelsky told British broadcaster Sky News she was travelling to London for a Saturday night out with her friends when the incident took place.
We just listened to music, just having a good time, and then I see that 5 rows ahead of me, a guy in a white T-shirt just jumps out of his seat out of nowhere and starts flew. And I was thinking, what's happened? There was me thinking maybe something happened to him, and then people started shouting from our coach, "Oh, he's got a knife!" He was just a black bearded guy wearing all black and a hoodie. On the way there, we saw people covered in blood. It was horrible when you know that the train's still going, that there's no police helping you in the train. Obviously, there wouldn't be. But I was hoping that the train would just stop and we could just leave. I felt claustrophobic because, A, everyone's pushing in and we're trapped in the small kitchen area. B, there's a guy with a knife stabbing everyone and you don't know if you're going to be next or not.
British Transport Police said Anthony Williams is charged with 10 counts of attempted murder, 1 of actual bodily harm and 1 of possession of a bladed article. He's also charged with attempted murder over a separate incident at Pontoon Dock transit station in London earlier the same day. 11 people were hospitalised. Williams will appear in court on Monday. A second man initially arrested was released without charge after it was determined the 35-year-old was not involved. Police said they are not treating the stabbings as an act of terror and are confident they are not looking for anyone else in connection with the attack. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The National Immigration Administration announced the implementation of facial recognition smart customs clearance at several border checkpoints on the borders of Hong Kong and Macau. Eligible residents aged 14 and above can use the new system to cross the border more efficiently. Timothy Lee reports.
Starting on Wednesday, residents can tuck away their identification documents when crossing the border, with a facial recognition measure set to expand from the Shenzhen Bay port to several other border crossings. Affected border crossings include the ports of Huanggang, Luowu, Liantang, as well as Futian. To use the facial recognition function, travelers must be 14 years old or above. For Hong Kong and Macau residents, a valid home return permit is mandatory, while mainland residents must carry a Hong Kong and Macau travel permit. Travelers who pass smoothly through the self-service customs clearance do not need to present any documents. This woman said the function is extremely convenient, adding that it's around 10 times faster than the previous method. While this man is glad he no longer needs to fuss about finding his documents inside his bag. The National Immigration Administration reminded those traveling across the border that they should still keep their identification documents on them just in case. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The Transport Department reminded residents that seat belts are mandatory on public transport and commercial vehicles starting on the 25th of January next year. This after the police earlier conducted a blitz enforcement operation on a minibus that resulted in the prosecution of 31 passengers who failed to wear their seatbelts. The latest seatbelt legislation applies to vehicles including buses, school buses, as well as trucks. Offenders could be subject to a maximum fine of $5,000 and 3 months imprisonment. Hong Kong's Chinese University launched a 4-year DNA testing program in 2024 to identify people at high risk of developing diabetes. The aim is to prevent the onset of diabetes. Mimo Singhai reports.
1 in 10 Hong Kong adults has diabetes, but 1 in 5 adults with the disease has young onset diabetes diagnosed before the age of 40. The mortality rate for the young onset group is nearly 2 times greater than the older onset patients. To prevent and delay the onset of diabetes, CUHK launched a 4-year DNA testing program aiming to screen 9,000 adults aged 18 to 44 to identify those at high risk of developing the disease in the next decade. Individuals detected as high risk will undergo urine and blood testing, including a 75-gram oral glucose tolerance test. Those found to have diabetes or pre-diabetes will be referred to community primary care physicians for subsidized treatment. To qualify for the screening, individuals must have no diagnosis of diabetes and possess at least 1 risk factor, such as family history of the disease and overweight. CUHK says men often have a greater risk of diabetes than women.
Men are more likely to smoke, and also maybe they may also their job nature, their eating habits, or their awareness about their health may be less than women. Whereas women may tend to come forward for treatment.
As of the end of October, the project has recruited over 5,000 people. CHK hopes the project can also enhance public awareness and health literacy. Mamos 9, TVB News.
The East Kowloon Cultural Center, or EKCC, is now officially open. The new performing complex in Ngau Tau Kok is positioned as a leading hub for art and technology. Housing 5 venues, the facility allows theater troupes to have longer-term runs. EKCC not only provides a range of professional equipment that support the curation of programs, it also aims to nurture homegrown talents, bringing transformative and captivating experiences to audiences. 17 programs will be presented during the center's opening session, featuring drone dance shows and electronic rock music. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.